All right. Hi, Christina. Thanks for being here today. And here we go
Hi.
again on
Here
a
we go again.
broad conversation about what people do to change their life. And I met a woman yesterday. We had a long walk together, and she
Mhm.
told me she was doing one thing every day
Mhm.
as a kindness experiment. And she apparently had
Mm.
signed up for this program online, and every day for 21 days, she got a prompt on something
Huh.
to do that would be kind. She was only on day two, so she didn't have much to share with me.
Still a
But
few days to go in terms of increasing kindness.
but she was thinking, we got these free tickets to something, and she's like, well,
Mhm.
that could be what I do on another day, is give a free ticket away. Uh, but I've heard for years different ideas of how long it takes of a consistent effort to change a particular habit or to
Mhm.
change a particular mindset. I've heard 21 days. I've heard really it takes 90.
Mhm.
What do you think?
I think anything that's consistently done over time, we get into the groove, it becomes a habit.
Mm.
Now, you could say 90 days, you could say 21 days. The most important thing is the consistency. Because what happens is, we've all done this. Oh, I'm going to do this thing. I'm so excited. And you add it for like a few days, maybe you did a whole week, but then you kind of fell off. Then you try to go back on and then you try to find, and it doesn't work because it needs to be consistent. So whatever you do, whether you do it for 90 days, 21 days, 3 months, yes, if you do something long enough, it will become a consistent habit for you. But especially if you're trying to change a mindset or change from your normal way of being or your typical way of being to a new way of being, it's going to take a while because think about it. Whatever you've been doing it, what, 20 years at least? So, yeah,
Well,
you're not
yeah.
going to change that so easily.
Yeah, 20 years. Okay, that's a good point of view. 20 years or 30 years or 40 years, depending on how
Uh-huh.
old you are, you've been doing this
Right.
thing. You might not even know you're doing the thing. But once you become aware of it, you want to switch it, you want to
Right.
change it, you want to become more grateful, or you want to become
Exactly.
more kind, or whatever the process is. There was a book I read years ago, and it said you had to do this every day. You had
Mm-hmm.
to like read the book,
Right.
write out the affirmations, and if you
Mm-hmm.
missed a day, you had to start over on day one. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I tried, what's the 21 day thing? I think
Mm-hmm.
I tried maybe for 6 months to remember every single day that I was going to do the thing so I didn't start over again.
Right.
And I just recently found a book where I made it to day 21 in that book. I
Ooh.
was like, well, I don't remember celebrating that success, but I sure should have. But day one, you did a certain thing. Day two, you did a certain thing.
Mhm.
And by day 21, you had really thought through a lot of why you were thinking that other thing and kind of
Right.
things that did begin to shift.
Absolutely. Because when we think, right now they're talking more and more about the whole idea of, neural pathways and creating new neural pathways. I mean, this stuff has been known in clinical neuropsychology for a long time.
Right.
That everything we do, every action we take, every thought we have literally is a neural pathway in our brain. So think of it like a well worn road that has been driven on over and over and over again. That's where our neural pathways are. So something we've been doing, that's a well worn road. So now we're trying to do a different road. It's nice, it's shiny, it's clean, but it doesn't have all the grooves of the other one. It's not the same. You and I both have probably experiences where a road we've been down a million times. We don't even have to think about it anymore. It's practically automatic.
Right.
But
If you think about how we automatically drive somewhere in our cars,
yes,
it's like
yes.
I saw someone post on social media the other day. It's like you just realized you drove home and you don't remember any of it. Are you
Yes.
scared? Are you scaring
Yes.
yourself now? It's like who drove home?
Absolutely.
Like your
Yes.
automatic self drove home. Your automatic
Oh,
self is scared of spiders. Your automatic self spends more money than you make. Your automatic self argues with the people that you love. And maybe you don't
100%.
want
Yeah.
to do maybe you don't want to do the automatic self. I love your visual of a well driven road because what I saw in my imagination when you said that, if you've ever been on a dirt road or a gravel road that runs
Mm-hmm.
off into a state forest or somebody's
Mm-hmm.
private land after a big like wet winter rain and
Mm-hmm.
there's ruts in that road so deep that you might just go halfway to where you're going and get stuck.
Yes.
And I think our
Ah,
brains do that too.
yes,
We're
yes,
just
yes,
stuck
yes.
in the road that we can't drive over because we don't have four-wheel drive, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, I love that analogy. It's that I love it because that's exactly what happens. We get stuck. We get in these ruts. We cannot get out of it. So when we're trying to do something new, when we go to a therapist or coach, or we're trying to do something new, we're trying to get ourselves unstuck from this road. We're trying to get, but we're spinning our wheels. So what happens is you need a little leverage to
Yeah.
push that car out of there. So that's where the momentum comes in. That's where the accountability comes in to give you that leverage to push yourself out of that rut.
Spinning our wheels. I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. Radio silence here for a minute. I was thinking the other day I was doing a course with a fellow coach, and she
Mm-hmm.
was doing a teaching that our mentor Mary taught us.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are stuck in the rut, in like they have fear that's
Mm-hmm.
coming up, that's
Mm-hmm.
taking them out of what they how they would love to live and where they would love to go in
Right.
whatever. Like let's say they want a love relationship, but they're like, oh, I'm afraid of that. You can actually notice that you're afraid. And there's a technique that they did with their bodies where they actually have you stand up and
Mm-hmm.
you notice your fear. And
Yep.
then you say, stomp your feet on the floor and you go, wait a minute. I'm a child of the universe. I'm a child of God, whatever your words are for that. I'm part of the quantum field. I'm bigger than this. I'm bigger than this, and I have a dream. And my dream is to have a beautiful, loving relationship. And so you can interrupt your fear thoughts like that.
Yeah.
Do you have any other techniques? I love the idea that you're talking to yourself and going, interrupt this
Yeah.
message.
Absolutely. I mean, whenever we're talking about that, because again, I always go back to the idea, the fear, anxiety, it's like we're caught in a loop.
Yeah.
It's a you have your Wi-Fi's not working great and things just looping. That's what's happening in our brain. It's just looping, looping, looping. Now, I was going to
Hmm.
say, for those who are old enough to remember, a record that is
Right.
stuck,
Yeah. When
it
the
keeps
record
like,
gets to the end and it just
yes,
keeps going,
exactly.
or it's
So that
skipping and it's playing the
it's
same phrase
skipping.
over and over again.
Exactly. So that's
Hmm.
what happens in our brains. We get stuck there. So whenever you do anything, because again, our minds, our emotions, and our actions are all tied together. You go for any one of those, you're going to change the others. So by
Mm.
doing something, this is why an activity helps. This is why going for a walk helps. Or by forcing, or by feeling something, doing something that's evocative of emotion, or by thinking something different, you are interrupting, because that's the whole key. You're stuck in a groove. So whether you have to move the needle on the record, or whether you have to hit the refresh on your phone, or you have to hit the backspace, you're interrupting that stuck spiral.
That's beautiful. And also, I take so many courses online. They're all like merging together. But I was online with a therapist the other day,
Mhm.
and he was doing a big teaching. And his deal, he might really not like me telling telling everybody in the world. I'll keep his name private, but
It's okay.
his idea, which probably you should not try this at home, I'm thinking it's better to do it with a
Mhm.
therapist, is he has you feel the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
whatever that feeling is you don't want to feel, and to
Mm-hmm.
really feel it, exaggerate it,
Mm-hmm.
and to
Mm-hmm.
give it like if it was a motion you were doing with your body, what's that motion? And
Right.
expand that, make that motion bigger, make it so big, so big, so big that you finally have a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing it with people, they were crying,
Mm.
and then they were saying, "Oh, I see."
Yeah.
So you can resist the feeling of fear that is stopping you from, meeting your goals, or you could probably work with a professional like you and
Yes.
really dig deep into like what is that fear telling you? What is the gift in the fear?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you befriend the fear and
Right.
move into what you love anyway, right?
Well, I'm a big fan of you do never ignore the fear. See, when I'm talking about pushing through it, you're acknowledging it. You're not
Mhm.
ignoring it
Mhm.
because whatever you're afraid of, whatever's holding you back, that's instructive. So you want
Ooh,
to
say more
understand.
about that. Say more. How is it instructive?
It's instructive because if you understand where the fear is coming from or what the fear represents to you, then you understand what your obstacle is.
Mhm.
So by identifying the fear, you're identifying your obstacle. And by identifying your obstacle, you can move it. So let's say, go back to our car analogy. We're driving, okay? I have an obstacle. Can't pass this thing. Now, if I ignoring your feelings is like a fog in front of you. So you just know something is blocking you, but you don't know what it is. Is it a,
Right.
is it a giant boulder? Is it another truck? Is it, am I going to go careening off into a canyon? You need to know what the obstacle that's blocking you is, because then you know how to handle it. Because if it's just a little pebble, and I don't, and because the idea of facing the fear or facing the feeling and really getting into it is you're clearing the fog away from your obstacles, so that now I can see what my obstacle is. So if it's just like a little rock, oh, I can pick that up, no problem, and toss that aside. If it's, another truck that's coming at me, okay, maybe I need to veer in this direction, but still I can still get there. I don't have to stop myself from going. So
Mhm.
again, you need to know what is blocking you to be able to know how to fight it.
Interesting. Yes. So for example, someone sees a fear and all of a sudden that fear makes logical sense to them
Mm-hmm.
and probably diminishes quite a lot once they've really
Yes.
seen what it is that they're afraid of. It's not just this, I'm afraid of this, I don't know what it is, but I don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. You've got to clear the fog away. And when you clear that fog away, you actually can see it clearly. Because this is why I'm a big fan of journaling. Because when you don't journal, you have all these thoughts and feelings just percolating in your brain. But when
Mhm.
you actually write it down and you're actually confronted, you're like, wait a minute, huh? Hold it. This is what I was concerned about. I mean, it takes time. And again, fears are very real. Things holding us back are very real. But we talk about not making mountains out of molehills. We
So
are very good at that.
do you have your people journal as part of working with you?
I do. I
Do
do.
they have to bring the journal in and read it to you, or is it just for their own
No,
benefit?
they don't have to do that. It's really for their benefit to get clarity. Now,
Mhm.
there are many times they will share journal entries with me because it's a safe
Mhm.
space.
Right.
But the main goal of it is for them to take all this nebulous, cloudy fear and put it out there so they can see what it is and deal with it.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. I used to write in a journal many years ago. I would write down my fears and things. And then my husband read my journal.
Oh, no. Oh,
And I didn't really like that. He's like, well, you left it open. And that
no,
doesn't
but
mean you can read
still,
it. So, yeah, that didn't work out so great for me.
I'm sorry. No, that was an invasion of your thoughts and your privacy. So
Absolutely.
I get it.
That's
That
that
was
is
not
what we
okay.
discussed. And probably like triggered some kind of childhood trauma because I remember when I got my first little diary, it had a little key that locked it.
Oh, yes, I
And
remember those.
but those keys, no, you could open it with anything.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you had
Anybody
any
could just like
stick,
pry
like
them.
it went on. I think I had a diary, but my little sisters didn't, so they would like sneak in there and try to read it. So I'm
Oh.
like, oh no, they're reading my diary. What is going
Oh, did
on?
you read my diary? No, because
Um, but yes, if you're writing in a journal, just so everybody who's listening,
mhm.
it's your private thoughts, it's your own journal. It's not for later publication,
Nope.
probably. And
Hmm.
your loved ones should not just grab it and read it. It's not for them. In
It's
fact,
not
you
for
might be
them.
writing crap about them that you don't even want to talk about in there, right?
Exactly. And you have a right to those private thoughts. You know, honesty in a relationship does not mean that you don't have rights to private thoughts. It just
Oh,
means
good
that in
point.
the relationship, you are going to be honest with them and be authentic with them, but you are still allowed to have private thoughts. This is one of the reasons I'm thrilled we can't read each other's minds. I think we'd all kill each other.
Oh, plus it would be too busy in there. We already have our own
Oh
thoughts
yeah,
going,
no, please.
and we could
Every
hear
movie,
everybody else's thoughts.
every
Wow.
movie you've ever seen where someone could read other people's thoughts, it's never turned out well.
No,
I
no,
tell you,
of
why do
course
I love
not.
movies so
Huh.
much? Movies are instructive. No,
Okay,
tell you.
do you have a movie for us today, Christina, before we
Let's
pop off? Like,
see.
what
What
movies would be like 21 days to something?
21
I
days
can't.
to change. I you know what? I'm
There's
gonna
none that are popping into my head.
does anybody, but you know what? I'm gonna go back to what I mentioned previously because I'm gonna go back to Groundhog Day because this
Hmm.
was where he was forced out of his routine by being caught in a time loop. For those of you who haven't seen Groundhog Day, I apologize for the spoiler, but basically, through one of the magic of TV time, movie time loop thingy, he was forced to relive Groundhog Day over and over again. So, because he was caught in a time loop, he had to get out of his routine. And
Yeah, because he started thinking if I change it, then I'll wake up from
yes,
this nightmare where every day I
exactly.
wake up and it's the same day.
Right. But no matter what he did, he couldn't
Mm.
change it. So, spoiler warning for those of you who haven't seen it, after a while, he just gives up to the time and actually uses it to do things that he's always wanted to do. He learns how to play the piano. He becomes a better person. He commits acts of kindness that he never would have done before. There's this great montage towards the end. Again, spoiler warning. If you've seen it, haven't seen it, you can turn this part off. They basically, there's a whole montage where he's doing all these acts of kindness for these people in the town because now after he's been there for all this time, he knows them. He knows exactly what's going to happen. He saves a boy from a tree. He saves a person from choking. He helps these old ladies who have a flat tire and he jacks up the car. So it's like he does all these acts of kindness in between learning how to do glass blowing and, playing the piano. And it's actually one of my favorite things because it's showing that here he started out as this very selfish, egotistical person who couldn't put anyone before himself. And just with he saw it as a curse initially, but the gift of time and being able to do things over and over and over again until he achieved mastery.
That's so beautifully put because you said something about a curse, and my mind went like wandering off like maybe the curse or the thing that you say is bad really has a gift in there for you.
Yes. So that I think is something we have to look at because Look, none of us want when bad stuff happens and when troubles come, none of us want that.
No.
But if something hasn't gone your way, or if a relationship ended, or if you suddenly decided you need to change something, but it didn't quite work out the way you thought it would, what did you learn from that? Did you learn anything? Was there a reason behind it? Now I know people say, oh, sometimes things just happen, there's no reason. Look at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let's talk about that next time because
Yes.
I that could be a super long conversation, but
Oh,
what
absolutely.
do you say is bad?
Yes.
Or it's a disaster, or it's an accident, or it's a terrible thing, and that there's a gift in all of those.
There's a gift in all of this. So come back next week where we will talk about that and
Right
give you guys
on.
some insight. Yeah.
Thanks, Christina, for today, and I'll see you next week.
I'll see you next week. Thank
All
you.
right.
Awesome.